Anna sat quietly in her small apartment, her hands resting on her swollen belly. The room was silent except for the ticking of the old clock on the wall, each sound echoing in her mind like a reminder of how much time had passed since her life fell apart. Just 6 months ago, she had been a happy wife, a woman who believed she had everything, a loving husband named David, a promising future, and now the miracle of new life growing inside her. But all of that had been shaken to its core the moment she discovered that her husband had been unfaithful. The betrayal hadn't been a whisper or a distant rumor. It had struck her face to face when she walked into his office one afternoon to surprise him with lunch. Instead of joy, she found another woman sitting on his lap, whispering words that once belonged to her. The woman's name was Vanessa, bold and cruel, someone who had no shame in stealing another woman's happiness. Anna's world crumbled that day. At first, Anna tried to hold on. She begged David to see reason, to remember the vows they had taken and the love they had shared. But Vanessa wasn't just a fling. She had ambitions, and David, caught in her web, had grown distant, cold and unrecognizable. The man who once held Anna's hand when she was scared of thunderstorms, the man who whispered promises of forever, was now slipping away, leaving her alone with her unborn child. The days that followed were heavy with silence. Anna would wake up in the middle of the night, tears soaking her pillow, whispering prayers that her baby would not feel the sadness that weighed down her heart. Her neighbors often heard her crying but said nothing. Pity could be crueler than silence. Still, Anna carried on. She worked at the small community library, trying to distract herself with books and kind smiles from strangers. But Vanessa wasn't satisfied with stealing David's love. She wanted to destroy Anna completely. Rumors spread in the town, whispers that Anna's child wasn't David's, that she had sought comfort in another man's arms when her marriage started to fall apart. These lies cut deeper than any blade. People who once greeted her warmly now looked at her with suspicion, their eyes filled with judgment. One morning, Anna received a court notice. Vanessa had pushed David into filing for divorce, and worse, they were demanding a DNA test, claiming the unborn child might not belong to David. Anna held the paper in her trembling hands, her chest tight with both fear and rage. How could they? How could a man who once swore he loved her doubt the very child they had created together? The weeks leading up to the court hearing were agonizing. Anna grew weaker, the stress weighing on her fragile body. Yet, every time she placed her hand on her belly, she whispered to her child, "You are my hope, my reason to keep going." Even when her world was crumbling, she refused to let despair win. When the day of the hearing finally arrived, the courtroom was filled with tension. David sat on one side, his hand entwined with Vanessa's. Vanessa wore a triumphant smile, her eyes glinting with the confidence of someone who believed she had already won. Anna entered quietly, her face pale, her body trembling, but her eyes holding a quiet strength. Every step she took seemed heavier than the last, yet she carried herself with grace. The judge began the proceedings, reading through the allegations. Vanessa smirked, whispering something into David's ear, and he nodded without once looking at Anna. It was as if the years they had spent together, the love they had once shared, had vanished into nothingness. As the judge announced that the DNA results would be revealed, Anna felt her heart pounding. She tried to remain calm, but her body betrayed her. The room blurred before her eyes, the weight of betrayal, humiliation, and exhaustion crushing her spirit. Suddenly, her knees gave way and she collapsed to the floor. Gasps filled the courtroom, and the judge immediately called for help. Vanessa's smile widened at first, thinking this was another victory. But as Anna lay there, fragile yet glowing with the life inside her, something shifted in the room. Even strangers who had doubted her felt a pang of guilt. The bailiff and a few kind-hearted people rushed to help Anna, lifting her gently and giving her water. David's face showed no concern. A man so blinded by another woman's influence that he failed to see the mother of his child fighting for breath. But the judge, an older man with years of wisdom, watched closely. He saw not just a fainting woman but a story of pain, endurance, and a love for her unborn child that could not be denied. When Anna finally regained consciousness, she looked around the courtroom. Her tears weren't of weakness. They were of strength, of a woman still standing despite everything thrown her way. She whispered, "I will not break. Not for him, not for her, not for anyone. My child deserves better." The judge cleared his throat, his eyes stern as he prepared to read the results of the DNA test. Vanessa straightened in her chair, her smug smile returning, convinced the results would humiliate Anna forever. David, too, leaned forward, expecting validation for his betrayal. But Anna sat quietly, her hands folded on her belly, whispering a silent prayer. Whatever happened, she knew she had already won something greater. The courage to face her pain without losing her humanity. The judge's voice echoed through the courtroom as he opened the envelope containing the DNA test. But before he could finish, he looked at Anna with an expression of quiet respect. The words he was about to speak would not just change the case, they would change lives. And in that moment, Vanessa's smile, so confident, so cruel, began to fade, as if she sensed the storm about to come.